Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday, Wednesday, and now Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. More about my schedule in just a minute. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss. It is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. I do have a couple of announcements. First of all, the Bookmap Blue Jacket competition for this month is focused on trading within Bookmap. So what you need to do is trade within Bookmap. It can be in the live, sim, or replay. Trade within Bookmap, show the trade control panel. Take a screenshot, mark it up, post on social media, either X, LinkedIn, or Instagram, with the hashtag #FreeBlueJacket to win a blue jacket, as well as I believe the prizes are 3 months of Bookmap Global or Global Plus subscription with data. So you can scan the hashtag for more information. Also, again, my schedule. Now I will be streaming starting next week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday and Wednesday, I'm thinking will be my normal format, going over my planning process and also reviewing setups in a broader sense, looking at ES and NQ and 5 or 6 stocks. I'm thinking what I'm going to do on Friday is focus more on 1 or 2 specific setups, probably 1 index, 1 or 2 stocks, and then make maybe more time spent on my process, how I set up my charts. I'm open to suggestions. So if anybody has any request about what they want to see on Fridays, please let me know. You can post in Discord, either directly to my Discord @DougP or in the Options-Doug chat channel. Either place, post request, comments, suggestions for my Friday webinars. And again, one thing I'm thinking about is a format similar to the case studies that I have done for Spotgamma. You can find them on the Spotgamma YouTube channel. All right, so again, please let me know what you want to see. All right, let's move on. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of the trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the Nasdaq 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of the trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a 2-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as their directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow on Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow on Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Jug chat channel as well as the chat in YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, February 18th. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, events, and earnings. Then I'll go through my positional analysis for today. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. Hello, Stephen. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, let's get started with news items. Let's take a quick look at, actually, let's just go on to the Spotgamma market overview. So I'll go over the data. Actually, let's go back. Let's take a look at the events calendar first. There is some key economic data coming up later on in the week. All right, so today there were several data items that came out. Not large impact. Housing starts, building permits, durable goods came out 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Durable goods were greater than expected, but less than the previous number and also less than zero. And then the VIX expiration was at 9:30 today, and that can cause some movement in the S&P 500 that was at 9:30, the cash open. All right, that's VIX expiration. And then today, important, is the FOMC minutes will be released at 2 p.m. And I will stop whatever I'm doing. We'll take a look at the S&P 500, see if there's any reaction to the FOMC minutes, again released at 2 p.m. Then on Friday, some key economic data, PCE data, comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then also GDP. And that is Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. All right, so also on Friday is the monthly options expiration. That's what I was looking at before. So what this chart is showing is market makers delta notional by expiration for the S&P 500, Nasdaq, and Russell 2000. So the orange bars are showing call delta notional, positive delta notional. Blue bar is showing put delta notional, negative delta notional, and this is again by expiration. So this is showing the upcoming February expiration, which looks like it is about balanced between puts and calls, and it is very small compared to the March expiration. That's just typical. The quarterly expirations are the largest expirations. All right, so that's the upcoming expiration. Remember, for the S&P 500, SPX, there are two expirations. There's the AM and the PM expirations. All right, let's move on. Let's go on to positional analysis now. I'm going to start with the S&P 500. This is the ES futures and Bookmap, going all the way back to the open yesterday evening at 6 p.m. And there was a rally up to about ES 6900 overnight, dropped down to SPX 6850, and then the SPX 6854 zero gamma level, and a rally up to key levels here. Much more about that in just a couple of minutes. That's the 6900 SPX 6900 large gamma 2 volatility trigger level that was noted as resistance in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note, and also just above that is the ES upper daily expected move. So by the way, I'm using price lines add-on so I can show SPX levels, SPY levels, and key ES levels all on this chart here in the in Bookmap, again, the ES. And we'll take a look at SPX in just a minute and see that SPX moved up to the SPX upper daily expected to move as well. So key resistance, and then we'll talk about the gamma positioning of that level as well. And really why the S&P 500 has stalled at that level and now moving down a little bit. All right, so let's move in again. All right, so again, I've got SPX, SPY, and ES levels on this chart. All right, before I spend more time on this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at a higher time frame. I'm going to go to the SPX. This is a 1 year, 1 day chart showing a thinkorswim. So the rally, we all know, began April last year and has continued to make a series of mostly higher lows and higher highs until recently SPX has started to consolidate, with 7,000 being the key resistance level. All right, let's take a look now at a shorter time frame. Let's go to a 30-day 1 hour chart so we can see this consolidation generally between, again, this is SPX 6,800 and 7,000. Note in this recent consolidation that SPX is making slightly lower lows and lower highs, but generally in a range between 6,800 and 7,000. All right, let's take a look at the levels on this chart. I'm going to start with the expected moves. Dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. These levels remain in place for the entire week. All right, the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market, again based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. These levels change every day, and I do post the expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ every day the day before. So this upper daily expected move for SPX, NES, and we'll see it's important on NQ as well. I did post all those levels yesterday evening in the Options-Doug chat channel in Bookmap Discord. All right, let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're available to Spotgamma subscribers on a variety of trading platforms. Again, this is thinkorswim, a 30-day 1 hour chart. I'm going to point out the key day levels. First of all, the put wall remains at 6,800. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And maybe the next test of 6,800 will break down even lower. All right, so that's a put wall, 6,800. Next level up is the volatility trigger, 6,900. That's a strike with largest. That's Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. This is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model. We'll take a look at gamma based on their newer synthetic open interest model in just a couple minutes. All right, the next level up is the 7,000 absolute gamma strike. That's historically largest absolute positive and negative gamma. So that's where most of the gamma weighted open interest is concentrated. And again, that's the key resistance level. Has been for the last couple of weeks. And then the call wall at 7,100. That's historically largest net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. All right, those are the key daily levels. All right, so the key level in play for today is obviously the 6,900 level volatility trigger and the upper daily expected move for ES and SPX. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1 minute chart. Let's zoom in on this just a bit. So this is price action yesterday, dark shaded portion yesterday. You can see that SPX did break down below the put wall, but did recover that level, and now has traded up to the 6,900 level, the volatility trigger, and finding resistance at that level. And again, this is the SPX upper daily expected move, and then the volatility trigger just above that. Note another key level in play for today is the 68.54 zero gamma level, and that was a good entry point for a long this morning in the bullish opening drive that I'll go through in just a couple of minutes. All right, that's SPX. All right, back to ES and Bookmap. Now let's take a quick look at SPY, then we'll get back to Bookmap. So let's go to SPY. Let's zoom in. All right, SPY key levels in play for today. 685 volatility trigger. And then the 686 zero gamma level just above that. All right, now back to Bookmap. All right, so price action today, strong bullish opening drive. There's the 68.54 zero gamma level, around that level. Good entry point for long, right around 950. And up to these levels that I mentioned before, the 6,900 volatility trigger resistance level, ES upper daily expected move, and we'll take a look at trace in just a minute that shows the positive gamma at up in a range of right around 6,900 to 6,945. That was providing resistance earlier today. And we'll talk about setups in just a couple of minutes. All right, so that's the S&P 500 key levels of play. Here's the SPY 685 volatility trigger. All right, note there is a difference in price between ES and SPX. And today that difference is right around, it's between 15 and 16. I'm using 15. It's closer to 15. So I'm showing SPX 6,900 at ES 69.15. So that offset is 15 points. And I do post the index relationships that I use every day in the Options-Doug channel and Bookmap Discord. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's take a look at Nasdaq. Similar price action today. Bullish opening drive up to resistance. And now trading lower. So very brief. Bullish opening drive lasted about 90 minutes. And then consolidation after that, now moving down a little bit. All right, so key levels here. There is the NDX 24,800 volatility trigger, 825 zero gamma level just above that, and then the NDX 25,000 absolute gamma strike, and the NQ upper daily expected move just above that. So just like the ES S&P 500, there was key levels up above that acted as a price target for a bullish trade in the morning, and then acting as resistance now. And again, we'll talk about setups in just a minute. All right, so let's step back. Let's take a look at the underlying index charts. Then we'll get back to Bookmap. All right, so the underlying indexes for Nasdaq, first of all, we'll start with QQQ. Zoom in. All right, down below the 600 level is the put wall in absolute gamma strike. And then the 610 large gamma 2 level up above. All right, that's QQQ. Let's take a look at NDX. There you can see the volatility trigger briefly acting as resistance. That's at 24,800. And then here's the key level, 25,000 absolute gamma strike, and consolidation around that level. Now moving lower. All right, so again, I've got those levels on my chart. There's the 25,000 level, 24,800 volatility trigger. And the offset between NQ and NDX today is right around 65 points. So I'm showing NDX 25,000 at NQ 25,065. All right, any questions about the indexes? Let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at gamma. This is also very key for trading today, if you're trading especially the S&P 500. So this is the trace gamma heat map in Bookmap. It's showing market makers' current gamma position. It's updated every 10 minutes. And this is for SPX. So this is showing, again, market makers' gamma position during the course of the day, updated every 10 minutes. Let's go back to the cash open. Step forward 10 minutes. I don't know, this morning it was showing more positive gamma up above. Yeah, now it looks a little bit different. So anyway, you can see so what this is showing, blue shading, blue bars are showing positive gamma. So in a positive gamma environment, we're looking for lower volatility. Market makers trading against price. Red shading shows negative gamma. And remember, in negative gamma, we're looking for higher volatility with market makers trading with price. I'm going to refresh this page. Yeah, it looked a little bit different this morning. So this morning there was much more positive gamma up above between 6,900 and 69.45. Picture's a little bit different now. So let's step through time. You can see some of that. There we go. Yeah, this is what I was looking at later on. 1010, you can see the positive gamma building up above from 6,900 to 69.45. Indicate traders are selling calls. Market makers buying the calls, hence the positive gamma. And you can see the 6,900 level. It's labeled hedge wall there. It's the volatility trigger. So brief bullish opening drive, long period of consolidation below that positive gamma. And then as SPX starts to drop lower, that gamma starts to diminish. That's all zero DTE options. So remember, gamma is greatest at the money at expiration. So as expiration approaches this afternoon and price moves away from that, that gamma is starting to diminish. And now SPX moving down into the very negative gamma down below, the red shading, bright red shading. So looking for potential for faster movement, higher volatility as SPX moves down lower. And this is the hero signal right here, this purple line, shifting sharply lower. All right, so that's the current gamma picture. So again, brief, very strong bullish opening drive up to the positive gamma up above, long period of consolidation. Now it appears that SPX may be moving down lower into this red negative gamma, high volatility zone. All right, so let's move on now. So we've looked at the key levels that are based on open interest. They're updated once a day. We've looked at gamma, which is in the trace gamma heat map that is updated every 10 minutes. Now let's move on to real time. So let's start with the S&P 500. We'll take a look at what options traders have been doing today. So we'll take a look at hedging flow and order flow in Bookmap. All right, so this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity in real time for the S&P 500 index. So it's showing the, again, options trades, market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. That is SPX, SPY. We've already taken a look at those. Also includes ES and XSP. So the white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the hero signal. And a rising hero signal indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They are buying calls and or selling puts. And then a falling hero signal indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions. They are buying puts and or selling calls. All right, so that's the S&P 500 index signal. There's another signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500, and that is the S&P 500 equity signal. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. Note this started moving higher right around 950. Flow alert came in, signaled significant options activity and a potential reversal in hedging flow, in this case from negative delta to positive delta, setting up this nice pullback right around 950. Again, remember that was at the SPX 68.54 gamma level. So one clue about this consolidation is the conflict between the S&P 500 equity signal. Now it's finally starting to turn lower. And let's go to the S&P 500. So you can see starting right around 10:05, the S&P 500 index signal was making lower highs while the S&P 500 equity signal was moving higher. And right now they're in coordination, both moving lower. So back in sync now. All right, so let's take a look at we'll stick with the equity signal. Let's zoom in a bit. Let's take a look at this opening drive. So remember, pullback entry right around 950 up to resistance at 6,900. And at that time, a flow alert came in. This is the S&P 500 index signal. again signaling significant options activity and a potential reversal in hedging flow, in this case from positive delta to negative delta. So remember, on the equity signal, there was the flow alert down here, and signaling, notifying you for the potential for that move higher. And then on the index signal, a potential for a move lower or consolidation, which is what happened. Really, I think in a good part due to that conflict between the S&P 500 index and equity signals. All right, so let's go to Bookmap now. So let's zoom in. All right, so when I'm trading, I'm looking at Hero on one screen, Bookmap on another. No, it is actually 201. Let's see what. So this is really, the FOMC minutes have come out now. We'll get back to the bullish opening drive in just a minute. So now ES moving a little bit higher, found support at VWAP, that light blue line. Looks like there are some large traders coming in with iceberg orders a few minutes before the FOMC minutes. All right, so not much movement. Let's go back. Oops. All right, looking at Bookmap. Again, entry point for long, 684, zero gamma level, or the SPY 684 level just above that for a little bit more confirmation. You can see the shift in volume dots. The volume dots in Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. And you can see at 950 there, as the hero signals started to move up, a lot of aggressive buyers coming in at ES. That's confirmed by cumulative volume delta here. Oops. The dark blue line and also the yellow line indicating sell stop orders helped to fuel that move higher. So that lasts from about 950 to 1015. In the long period of consolidation. Pretty much an equal number of sellers and buyers. And again, S&P 500 equities signal moving higher, and the S&P 500 index signal moving lower in conflict and helping to contribute to this long consolidation. All right, let's go back. Let's take a look at Hero again. All right, so again, the Hero index signal basically moving lower since this peak at 950 and then turning sharply lower with this peak at 1 p.m. SPX follows. Back to the equity signal. And now turning lower as well. Again, right around 1 p.m. Not as sharply lower. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so again, it looks like Bookmap may have found support at ES 6900 and VWAP, that light blue line just below 6900. All right, let's take a look at Nasdaq. Again, similar pattern. Strong bullish opening drive after a pullback just after the open. Green volume dots come in, break above the NDX volatility trigger. Sharply rising cumulative volume delta, then consolidation. And then my stop order shown by the yellow line helped to fuel that move higher. And that consolidates, that levels off about just after noon. No large traders are fading that move with iceberg orders they use to hide their size. And earlier today, certainly not getting their way. And this is pretty typical. Large traders with iceberg orders will often sell strength and buy weakness, fading the move. All right, so let's take a look and see what options traders are doing. First of all, go to the Nasdaq signal, showing a very strong bullish opening drive. And this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the Nasdaq index components, QQQ and NDX. So definitely a strong bullish opening drive. And of course, the Nasdaq has been beaten down pretty severely in the last few weeks. So strong bullish opening drive. This is a pattern that's very typical of stocks. Strong bullish opening drive. Then the call buyers and put sellers take the foot off the gas and consolidation. All right, there's another hero signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. For the Nasdaq, and that's the Mag 7 signal, showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. These stocks make a very large component of the Nasdaq 100 and the S&P 500, and can definitely drive price. All right, so this is showing Mag 7 starting to turn higher right around 950, and then finally turning lower right around 1 p.m. and the index responding. Actually, let's leave those arrows in. Then we'll go back to NDX, Nasdaq. And starting to move lower about the same time as the Mag 7 signal. Otherwise, kind of different signals. And again, the Nasdaq index, bullish opening drive to consolidation, then Mag 7 more of a continuous rise up until about 1 p.m. All right, any questions about the indexes? All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at some stocks. All right, so I'm going to split out puts and calls now. So you can see a NASDAQ, orange line shows calls, blue line shows puts. Traders buying calls, selling puts up until about 10:15. Mag 7, mainly call buyers driving price higher up until about 1 p.m. SP equities, also call buyers, shown by the rising orange line. And when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. Then finally, S&P 500. Traders were initially selling puts, gradually selling puts up until about 1 p.m., started buying puts, and they have been selling calls since 10:05. So this provides a lot more clarity when we separate out puts and calls. And we can see that traders have been selling calls and selling puts up until about 1 p.m. And then the put sellers became put buyers. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. First stock I want to take a look at is Amazon. So I'm going to focus on and M109 Rider, welcome, glad you're here. I've been talking about the lines for several minutes. So let's go back to the S&P 500. Just briefly, the white line is price for SPX. The orange line shows traders buying and selling calls, mainly selling calls, in the S&P 500 index components. That is SPX, SPY, XSP, and ES. Directional lines indicates options delta. Negative falling line indicates negative delta. Blue line shows puts. Rising line shows traders selling puts. Falling line indicates traders are buying puts. Market makers, I'm talking about options makers, take the opposite side of these trades and they hedge their delta exposure. They always want to remain delta neutral, so they have to hedge their delta exposure. In this case, they're hedging their delta exposure with ES futures. All right, so let's move on to Amazon. So we'll move on to a single stock now. All right, very typical pattern, classic pattern for a bullish opening drive to call exhaustion. And this is Amazon. Amazon has also been beaten down in recent weeks. And trying to recover today. So what this is showing is traders are buying calls from the open. Full alert signal, significant options activity, get your attention. Traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. Bullish opening drive up until about 10:45. Call buyers take the foot off the gas. And now consolidation. So that fuel that has driven price higher earlier today is gone now. And Amazon is consolidating at a very common pattern. And note the 207.50 call wall up above was the target. And call buyers took the foot off the gas before that target was achieved. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. We'll go to Amazon. Bullish opening drive. $207 call wall, target up above. Also, for stocks, the targets are very clear. This is the heat map of Bookmap, shows a history of limit orders in the order book. So these are limit sell orders up above, and these act as magnets for price. So this is a good way to identify price targets for long or short. All right, so call buyers driving price higher today. Few pullback entries. Here's one pullback entry at a VWAP for long as traders continue to buy calls. All right, classic pattern. Bullish opening drive, call buyers to call exhaustion, then consolidation. All right, next stock, NVIDIA. NVIDIA in the news today. And apparently Meta is going to buy a large number of NVIDIA GPUs. And that was helping to drive NVIDIA higher today. Though unlike Amazon, there are a lot more aggressive buyers. You can see all the green volume dots indicating more buyers than sellers. Very clear target at 190. That's also the call wall. So a couple primary entry point here. If you were patient, the second trend break. If you caught this first one, you probably were stopped out. Second trend break above VWAP with the target of the 190 call wall, high liquidity up above. Those are limit sell orders. Well, let's see what options traders are doing. So let's go to NVIDIA. Zoom in on this. So NVIDIA, there was chop for about the first 25 minutes. Then just after 9:50, remember that's when the index is pulled back and turned higher. NVIDIA starts moving higher. That's that second trend break as traders continue to sell puts, shown by the rising blue line that started rising before that pullback. And then call buyers joining the party. Again, when traders buy calls and sell puts, market makers take the opposite side of the trades. And they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. And Mr. Fahim says, please add Arabic subtitles to your videos. I certainly can't do anything about that. I don't know if that's something that Bookmap can do or that's just something up to YouTube. I'll check with the person in charge of our YouTube, but I don't know if there's anything that I can do about that. But I will try. All right, so that's NVIDIA. Not a bullish opening drive necessarily. Took a little while to get going, but traders started buying calls. So they continued selling puts. Price moved higher up to the 190 call wall, and then is now reversing slightly lower. All right, so that's NVIDIA in the news this morning. Selling billions of dollars worth of GPUs to Meta. All right, next stock I want to take a look at is Robinhood. Robinhood, another beat up stock, bullish opening drive. A lot of green volume dots, a lot of aggressive buyers today. Buying the dip in Robinhood. Let's see what options traders are doing. Another bullish opening drive. Zoom in on this just a bit. Took a few minutes to get going. Traders started selling puts, shown by the rising blue line. And this is what I call an institutional kickoff. This vertical line shows a large institutional block order, some institution buying calls. Let's take a look at one thing here. Let's turn on next expiry. All right, so what this is showing, the green line is showing calls that expire on Friday. So that's the next expiration for stocks. So this green line is showing this large block order of calls, calls that expire on Friday. So not long-term bullish, just short-term bullish. But nonetheless, buying calls, helping to drive price higher. Then the retail call buyers come in and start to take the foot off the gas about 10:30. And that's when Robinhood consolidates with the 80 call wall target well above. And there were also put sellers. And the call buyers and put sellers have both taken the foot off the gas as Robinhood consolidates and now moves lower. Strong bullish opening drive that we've seen several examples of so far. Liquidity targets up above. Double top and now grinding lower as the put sellers and call buyers fuel that door price higher is gone now. All right, so that's Robinhood. They're a very strong stock today. Micron. Let's zoom in on this. Very strong, strong stock today. Micron stock of the day. Pull back long entries. You can see all the green volume dots. A lot of aggressive buyers buying stock. Rising cumulative volume delta. Multiple price targets up above. And I'm just showing lines at the zeros and the fives. Limit sell orders up above. 410, 415, 420, 25, 30. Very strong move. Let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Micron. And zoom in on this. All right, so it looks like it took almost a half an hour, 25 to 30 minutes, for the call buyers to get in sync. So Micron found support. This is key right here. Found support at the 395 hedge wall. Resistance at the 410 call wall. Pulled back. Then continued higher. And after that pullback from the 410 call wall, that's where the call buyers came in. And now finally, starting right around 11:45, the call buyers and put sellers have taken the foot off the gas. Micron consolidating. All right, keys for today. Whoops. 395 hedge wall support just after the open. Let's take a look at Hero again. 400 is the key gamma strike, 410 call wall. So pull back below the 400 key gamma strike. Call buyers come in. Aggressive buyers shown by the green volume dots. There's the resistance at the call wall. Pull back to VWAP. Buyers come in, and again, stock buyers shown by the green volume dots. Price moves higher. Key liquidity levels up above. Again, 415, 420, 25, 30. Acting as magnets for price. Those are your targets up above. So there's Micron, stock of the day. Now consolidating as the call buyers and put sellers have taken the foot off the gas, as well as the aggressive buyers. So right now it looks like an equal number of green and magenta volume dots with a lot of sellers up above. Right around 428 to 430, a lot of sellers. Bright orange. The deeper the color, the more the sellers. So this is showing their, right now, limit sell orders at 430, 57,300. All right, last stock I want to take a look at is actually next to last, Palantir. Another stock that's been beaten up, very bullish opening drive. You can see all the green volume dots, aggressive buyers. Clear liquidity target at 140. Limit sell orders for the order book. And those were hit and consumed just after 10 a.m. Again, a lot of green volume dots, aggressive buyers, rising cumulative volume delta. All right, let's see what options traders are doing. Back to Hero, Palantir, again another stock that's been beaten up. I think Palantir got an upgrade today. Pretty choppy Hero signal. Bookmap signal much more clear. Aggressive buyers, green volume dots, rising cumulative volume delta. But this is a bullish opening drive. Aggressive call buyers for about 15 minutes. Take the foot off the gas. Call buyers come in. In that second peak, actually there's one more peak at 10:30. It looks like that peak marked the high of the day. And soon after that, the call sellers came in. And now Palantir is consolidating. And Mohammed, welcome, glad you're here. Ask, I guess wants to see XAU USD. Not sure what that is. Is that gold? All right, so we're going to look at silver. Then we can take a look at GLD and Hero. All right, so silver on the move this morning. Let's see what options traders are doing. There's silver, classic pattern, bullish opening drive to call exhaustion. A couple of flow alerts signal significant options activity. Get your attention just after the open. A little bit of consolidation at the 70 key gamma strike. Then right around 10:15, the call buyers take the foot off the gas and silver consolidates. All right, back to Bookmap. And we're looking at the ETF, SLV. I don't have silver futures here. All right, so silver on the move this morning. Now it looks like dropping sharply lower. Let's go back, check Hero. All right, nothing really going on in Hero. And Muhammad, if you are asking about gold, we can take a look. Similar pattern, although the call buyers not as aggressive initially, more like they were following or chasing price, but then took the foot off the gas right around 10:15. Gold consolidating. All right, let's go back to the indexes. All right, it looks like the put buyers and call sellers now have slowed down a bit, so the call line has now flattened out. Same for the put line. Let's go Bookmap, take a look at ES. All right, so now it looks like ES is chopping up and down around VWAP, that light blue line, and the SPY 686 zero gamma level just below. Let's check Nasdaq. Nasdaq still above VWAP. It looks like it's moving lower. Let's go check. Go check Hero. Go to the Nasdaq signal. Pretty choppy. We shift the total signal. And now you can see the move lower a little bit more clearly. Long period of very quiet activity, and then traders start taking negative delta positions again. Let's check trace. All right, remember SPX solidly in negative gamma there, shown by the red shading. Take a quick look at Charm, showing buying support, selling pressure due to time decay. Blue shading, this should be in a zone of buying support due to time decay, even though gamma is still negative. All right, last call, questions, comments, stock. All right, back to Bookmap. Nasdaq moving lower. Yes, also moving lower. All right, remember I will now be presenting my weekly schedule Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Monday and Wednesday, I'm thinking will be my normal format, what I did today. And then I'm thinking of doing more in-depth on one or two particular topics on Friday. If you have any suggestions, any comments, please let me know. All right, JS wants to take a look at Tesla. Yeah, we can do that. Tesla's pretty choppy today. So if you have any comments, any requests about what you want to see on Friday, please let me know. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. You can send me a direct message at Doug P. Also, you can post in the Options-Jug chat channel and in the Bookmap Discord. All right, let's take a quick look at Tesla. See what options traders are doing. Go to Tesla. All right, choppy day in Tesla. And clear setup here, this peak. So generally bullish chop in the morning, just after 12:45. Flow alert comes in, signals significant options activity, and also a potential reversal in hedging flow. That's exactly what happened, from positive delta to negative delta. And Tesla rolled lower. All right, I need to stop now. I need to go to a meeting. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Remember, I will be presenting on Friday. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you on Friday. Bye.